So today we're speaking with Vincent, and how to pronounce your surname?
Kind of tough. Giarrano.
Giarrano. Giarrano.
Yeah.
Is it Italian or
Sicilian, Italian. Yeah.
Sicilian?
And
Nice.
who knows what the name was originally? You know, a
Yeah.
lot of families, when they came to America, the name was slightly changed.
Yeah.
But it's a tough one to say.
Okay, great. As a well-known realist painter and a former comic book artist, whose works have been exhibited, amongst others, in National Portrait Gallery, which is quite close to where I am currently in gloomy London, which is, it was very amazing to hear that, because I really like this gallery and all of the galleries surrounding that gallery. Also Smithsonian Institution, Washington DC, and many others, events and exhibitions, which we wouldn't have time to release them all. And maybe to just go straight in, I would like to first ask you a few more general questions regarding your practice. Yeah, so maybe one of them would be, how would you describe your style, if it's even possible, and whether you think kind of discussions on topic of style is relevant itself.
The thing I really identify with is the history of painting that is about speaking of the human experience. Like in the 19th century, the realist movement in France, with Courbet,
Yeah.
You know, they were painting about what they were experiencing, what real life was like. And, you know, painting peasants and what real life felt like. And later on, the Ashcan School in New York City that Robert Henry developed and was, you know, such a leading inspiration for, you know, they also were departing from just painting rich people or romanticizing life, and they were painting what really was going on with people, you know, in the ghettos and just real people. And so I really identify with that. And I feel a connection with, you know, contemporary life. I want to paint what is beautiful and interesting right now, that's relevant to me and what it's like to be a human being and to feel and to be walking through life and to experience things. So I really identify with that history of painting, and painting that has to do with narrative and, you know, life.
Painting things that may not be forever in our sight. Like in the city, they change all the time, like facades of stores and everything that's encapsulating the city itself.
Anything is going to be like that.
Yeah.
No, I don't have a problem. I mean, it's I see people respond to that very favorably, and they like that. And I don't know. I think it's important to paint, you know, things that are about the time you're in. I think that's a key thing.
Yeah.
You know, just being in the moment.
Maybe that's a great segue to into the next question I had. When I was going through your art on your Instagram, going through those the moments of time that on Instagram can really nicely kind of feel. I stumbled upon this one sketch of a woman, and I had this idea that for a question, what role does sketching play in your practice? And there was this really nice description of, you put it alongside this sketch, which is a quote, a 20-minute pose from a figure drawing. I love how drawing the figure trains you to see more objectively. What could you say on the objectivity of your maybe art and art in general, and yeah, the sketching in your work?
Well, one thing relating to that I feel is very important is to find the mix, as an artist, to find the mix of things in your life that keep inspiration going, and you don't want to hit a block or be stopped. You kind of want to have a continued flow of inspiration, I did a lot of work to gear my process to give me the experience I want and also give me the control that I want.
Uh-huh.
So one of the things that I did was I used writing to help me to figure things out. I think it's a great way to sift through all the things that you have to know and figure out.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something about writing that just makes things happen.
Okay, that's interesting.
It's been a great process for me, and I feel like it's the thing that made me advance faster and more organized, and it's just been great, and I still use it all the time.
It's like a medium of focusing your ideas, the writing itself.
Absolutely. In your head, it just disappears or it doesn't solidify and it doesn't happen. But just the process of taking it out of your head and putting it on paper, you get to think about it, you get to evaluate what you're thinking about, and then you have a record of it if you ever want to refer back to it. And then also you can rewrite the same thing over and over again, and then it becomes more solidified in your head, and then it just makes things happen. It's great. And so it's very important to me to have this mixture of things in my life, and figure drawing is one of those things. You get to hang out with other artists, and that's great. Networking and talking with other artists and sharing, that's a key aspect. There's something about drawing the figure. It's not like any other subject. It's more exacting, it's challenging, and to me, drawing the figure is exercise. It trains my eye. So I really don't think of them as finished drawings. It's really like practice and exercise, and it keeps my eyes sharp and seeing objectively, which is a really important thing. So I go, a few times a month with a group nearby, and it's just a good experience. And it's one of the things I do in order to, keep things, working well.
So you still, it's like a progress for you. You don't feel like you reached any particular kind of level that you're going to settle at. You think it's going to kind of evolve.
Absolutely. You should never settle or be at a plateau where you're just cruising. I think another part of that mix I talked about is you should always be a little hungry. You should always be learning, gaining new experiences. And even like figure drawing, you find that on a certain night, you're drawing differently. And it may have to do with, where your head is at, how you're feeling that night, the energy of the room. If the model is like very good or inspiring, so there's differences, and that's enjoyable too. Some nights are just amazing, and some nights you might not feel it, and then you kind of like come at it with different ideas too. Like there might be something that pops into my head that I want to try, so I'll go into drawing that night with a particular goal in mind, or a vision of what I want to do.
Does it vary from time to time, the way you see it internally to how it comes out?
Yes and no. I'm very big on planning. Early on, I found that a painting could fail. And so I targeted, why could a painting fail? Because I really wanted to cut down on the possibility of a painting failing. So I figured out things about my process, and then things about approaching a painting that made it go bad. And so I really wanted to cut back on that experience because I didn't like the way it felt. And at a certain point, I decided I wanted to enjoy what I did. And I found that sometimes I was not enjoying the experience. So again, through writing, I figured out what was the problem. And then once I figured that out, I targeted how to change my process in order to give me the experience I wanted. And that had to do with one, the painting succeeding, and another was the whole experience from start to finish of like my energy and my interest and my connecting with the painting. So I changed things about my process in order to get that feeling I wanted. And I was able to raise my energy level. Like early, it would start off great. First day or two was great. And then it just would go down. And by the end of it, I just hated the painting. And I was at a place where I was like, I don't even know if this painting's done, and I don't care about this painting. So I changed things in order to keep my energy up and my interest up for the whole entire time I paint. And that made a big difference. And also I was able to cut way back on a painting failing. It can still happen, but it doesn't happen very often. And I never, like, for instance, I never rush into a painting. I think about a painting, I write about a painting, I do studies for it. And doing studies, the more I do of that, preliminary work, I found makes the whole experience of creating richer and better. And so the more work I do, the better it gets. And it just gives me more enjoyable experience with whatever I'm painting. So, but on the other hand, you have to be open for like happy accidents that occur, things you don't intend, but do happen. So I'm pretty resolved, but on some level, I'm open to things because that's important, but not to the point where I don't know where I'm going.
Exactly. That's amazing. It actually made me think of why sometimes I find paintings when I go, for example, to a British museum and some other museum where there are some older paintings where they aren't just, really kind of maybe flashy or have something that just to grasp the attention of the viewer, but of a particular scene, and they're just presenting something. And there is something about this preparation and putting so much forethought into those paintings creates this another layer of depth to them.
It's exciting seeing other work. And when I was sort of figuring out my style, like you talked about, and what I wanted to do with painting, I looked at artists that I liked, but I also found it was great to look at art I didn't like, because a negative was as good as a positive, because you could look and say, okay, that's not what I want to do. Like a woman reading in a sunroom naked, that's, to me, that's so wrong. That's not anything like what I want to do. For me, it's got to be true. It's got to be sincere. It's got to be something that makes sense. And a painting can have some mystery about it, but to be weird and wrong and gratuitous, those are things I didn't want. So I spent a long time, looking at work that I liked and work that I didn't like. And then sometimes one painter, you might like one thing that they do.
Exactly.
And, it just like pulling all of those influences together really helped me to figure out how I wanted to convey, my images, my paintings, things like that.
Great, thank you. So maybe a question that's more down to earth. What role, I was wondering, does painting inanimate objects play in your practice? Anything particular why you also include things that, just they're not particularly in any sort of interaction, or they just exist and you just like capture them?
One thing is like doing a still life, I find is great as part of like that mix, like taking time from doing figure work or other subjects to do a still life is a nice break, and it mixes things up in a way that keeps things going. And at first I didn't like still life. I didn't identify with it and I didn't want to do it. But then at a certain point, I realized that there was a way I could do still life, and it just had to do with applying the concept of my other work to it. So if I do a still life, it's got to be something that fits in with the same idea, which is about, something beautiful that you see in life, something interesting, but not like a formal still life. So I like things, just that you would see, and it draws your eye. And by stopping that, you're able to, enjoy it. And, a lot of it's about just slowing down and taking in those things that are sometimes really fleeting, and that you just kind of pass by. So a lot of my work is about, stopping and enjoying, these things that are around us that are so amazing.
That's great. There was this one comment under one of your still life of the Chanel boots, which I think really nicely portrays this the feeling of it, that it's a still life with a personality. Okay, maybe we can go now to the painting of this conversation, which is the painting of a Instagram personality at Viva Drag. I wanted to ask if any of your paintings are less or more important or special, or any way that you kind of group them in your own, like how you feel about them. Is there any way that you categorize your painting in terms of what's their speciality, and if this particular painting is one of those paintings?
Yeah, definitely. I like the paintings that I feel are more successful,
Okay.
And also that they hit the things that I'm most interested in. So I definitely have favorites. Sometimes it's just one that is painted in a way that appeals to me more. Otherwise, it could be the composition or the subject, or I just hit it right, or a combination of things just came together, which is a cool thing. When everything comes together, it's amazing. It's like magic. And that's even going back to when you first start working with a person. So there's so many different things in play that when it all comes together and works to your satisfaction, it's a great thing. And it's part of the energy and enthusiasm of being a creative person. When you create something, it releases stuff in your head, I think, that it's like falling in love, or it's like an addictive thing when you create something and you just like look at it and you enjoy, that experience in what you did. But yeah, this piece that you wanted to talk about, that's one of my favorite ones.
Is there any particular story behind this painting? Like, or it's something just nicely just goes with your practice?
So when I work with someone, when I paint someone, it's someone I'm working with. You have to control that aspect, and also, like have permission and stuff like that. But it takes a lot of work to capture the thing that I want. One, because it could be a very fleeting thing, but also I need to compose, and sometimes that takes a lot of work to get all the things you want. So like I'll take hundreds of images, then I'm working from like many of those images to create the thing. So in the end, the thing that I paint might not have actually ever happened exactly like that, because I'm pulling so many things together to get what I want. But even then, the thing I'm painting from, whether I'm like looking at it and painting from life, or if I'm working in the studio, it's reference. You have to change whatever you need to make the painting work. In the end, that's all you're going to see. So I'm not bound to whatever I'm looking at. And that's one of the lessons I learned from plein air painting, was that you're not just an eye. You don't just paint exactly what you see. You have to edit and compose, and you have to interpret what you're seeing and distill it and make the painting work. And so that was a valuable lesson. And so that's kind of the process I use.
When you sent me this painting, the first thing that caught my attention was definitely the colors, the palette of it, which is spectacular. It's like really grabbing the attention beside just the beautifully executed subject. Is there any particular force to the colors of it, or it came out from this mosaic of inspiration that you drew from the working with the person?
Well, one thing is there was a lot of red in the painting that I thought was really cool. But more than that, when I'm painting, I'm thinking about the harmony of light. Because when I paint something, usually the whole scene is being bathed in one light, whether it's like a cloudy day, or it could be a sunny day, but maybe like reflected light. So whatever it is, even if it's like an interior scene and there's light coming through a window, or even if it's artificial light, that scene, all the colors, everything in that scene is being affected by that light. And so it's going to give a harmony because all of the color is being affected by it. So I think a lot about achieving that harmony. And to me, that's the thing that makes it feel real. So someone's looking at it. The thing that really, I think, makes a connection is subliminally, they're picking up on that harmony. And so that makes it feel real. I mean, I have a lot of detail and small, notes of color and things like that. But to me, I think that harmony is the thing. So I think a lot about that.
So some of your paintings are more or less kind of rendered to a different degree of detail. Is it something that the rendition of it isn't something that ties with the harmony you render until you get to this particular kind of feel?
No, not too much. I like painting in different ways. And I think it's important for a painter to have different processes. So I really enjoy painting in different ways. Like I can use different size brush, or I can use a different palette, or a different subject, or a different size. Or another thing that's cool is changing how long you're going to work on something. That changes how you paint. And so that's another thing that I think keeps things interesting is, I'll come into a painting and like now I'm doing a series of daily paintings. So right there, that's changing a lot about how I paint, to give yourself a limited amount of time. And that's a great experience. And it's a different experience. So I like to do a painting where I'm on it for like a month, but that's, totally different. I enjoy that.
Great, thank you. Maybe one of the wrapping questions. I really like symbolism in art, whether it's realism or hyper-realism or just simple like abstraction or whatever, whichever art it is. And maybe it's something innate in our minds that we always look for patterns and symbols. And when I look at your paintings, I feel like I see a lot of symbols, and because of the rendition and the effort you put into, or the kind of lack of effort, in a like how well you execute something without any problem because of the the kind of the exercise you went through. And so is there any symbol into your paintings, and in these paintings particularly, or is this something you think even about?
Sure. I have things that mean something to me. And so that's not necessarily something that the viewer will understand, but it's important to me. And probably more, I think about narrative. And so, yeah, there are things that I guess would be symbolism and lend itself to the narrative. So I'm looking at a scene and I'm thinking about, the mood and the narrative that I feel from it. But it's not like a definite narrative. It's kind of like a suggested narrative. And I find that depending on who is looking at the painting, their life experiences sort of contribute to how they see that narrative and feel it. Like one person will look at my painting and feel that the subject and the mood is kind of pensive or mysterious. And another person might look at it and feel sadness. And then another person will look at it and see that this person that I've painted is empowered. So there's all sorts of different things. And I like that because it's engaging. One of the things that I never wanted was that experience where someone just walks by a painting. Yeah. I've been to a lot of shows and the work, it just doesn't hold you. There's no connection. It's you just kind of walk through and, seconds, if anything, at a painting. So I really want to connect with my viewer. I want to engage them. And I want it to be kind of an interactive experience. And so narrative is a big part of my work. And definitely on my end, I'm seeing things about the person and about the setting that connect and are symbolic.
It's just a abstract question, but that just came to my mind. Do you have sometimes like an idea to change a painting maybe?
Not too often. Although there were some paintings that I found that I have around that I'm far enough away from them that I think it would be a good experience to work on that painting again, because it's not something I typically do. Typically, I have a definite idea and I do the painting and that's pretty much it. But I have a few paintings that I think it would be a cool experience to rework the painting, because now I'm far enough away. I don't have that fear of changing it or touching it and stuff like that. And that's something I always try to minimize. It's like you have to learn not to care too much. If you care too much, if you hold on too tightly, you don't get better, you don't advance your work, you're just too inhibited. For a long time, I've found that to get better, to improve, you got to let go and not hold on to it. So like selling work, that's a great part of letting go. I just noticed that people that hold on too tight, they didn't improve and they couldn't be like a professional painter.
That's a really great way to look at it, and also like a tip to anyone who would be interested in painting. Maybe regarding the composition of it, is there anything special about the composition of this particular painting, or any paintings that you would like to mention?
Well, this particular piece, my concept going into it, I was writing about how I wanted to do a series of paintings that had very narrow parameters. So the idea is a contemporary portrait, something that really feels contemporary, the subject and the setting. And also I was limiting the viewpoint, like a straight on view. There's photographers that I like, for instance, like Richard Avedon. His photography is very narrow in its idea. So I like the idea of doing that, setting up something that was very specific. It's basically the figure and a setting, and also how the view is very close, and even to it being a vertical instead of horizontal. And also the subject, I wanted the subject to be looking at the viewer, making that connection, which, that's a big difference right there. Yeah. So that was the first piece I did, and I enjoyed it. And so I'm doing a whole series of those where it's very similar in the concept and parameters. But I love working in series. That's one of the things that's important to me, is to have sort of a concept that encompasses all of my work. And yet within that, I have like separate series. And I find that makes things very enjoyable. And collectors really love that, I think. And
Yeah.
it adds like a variety, I think, to what your work is.
Um, what do you think? What do you think about the social media? How art is portrayed within social media? Is it something that you think on that relates to your practice, or you just went through it and you never thought about this? You just let go of your work to be seen by everyone. What do you have any thoughts on the social media and how it's encapsulating the art scene?
Sure. Um, One of the things I noticed before getting into social media or early on about it was I felt like it was important to have an idea of what you wanted to do. Um, I saw what various people were doing with it, and I saw that some people, if they didn't have a clear idea of what they wanted, it could go, really wrong.
Yeah,
Just like go off the rails, and then they just would lose interest in it, or just like close down their thing because it was just a mess.
yeah,
So my original idea about social media was to network with other artists and also to gain inspiration from other people and to share with other artists and just to network like that, and definitely to focus on it being about art, about my interest in art and promoting my art and things like that, and also to put my work out there. I think one of the main things you want as a professional artist is to share your work.
mm,
And so any way that you can get more people to see your work, that's what you want. You want as many people to see it as
exactly.
possible.
Yeah,
And so the downside of that is, there could be bad things that come from that. But I think it's worth having that stuff happen.
yeah,
The gain of having people see your work outweighs, whatever could possibly happen that way, I think. So I've enjoyed it, and it's become like a really good thing to give me feedback, seeing how people react to paintings and subjects. That's been really nice.
thank you. Maybe another little bit more philosophical question, if you don't mind me asking, just maybe to wrap up. Don't want to take more of your time. What do you think art is?
Oh, that's a huge thing. It could be whatever. And art is very separate, things. I mean, depending on what your intent is and what your sort of genre is that you fit in with and things like that. So it could be many different things. For myself, I know what I like, and I see where I sort of fit in, and I kind of operate within that. But it's so many different things. It's like apples and oranges. It's just different things. Art is not one thing.
Yeah.
It's just tons of different things.
Do you tend to ponder about like a bigger question regarding where your own art lies within the like a broader on a history, and like where it is, how it refers to everything else around it?
I think about it a little bit, but not too much. I sort of know what I want to do, and I really kind of just focus on, creating, but I don't really think too much about, where it fits in and stuff like that.
That's really nice. It can create such a deep creation just by just letting them out and let them speak for themselves.
Absolutely, yeah. I used to have like specific goals and things I wanted to achieve. And I think in the last few years, I've been able to let go of those things too. And I find that that's very freeing. And I really am at a place where I'm just enjoying painting and creating. The fact that I can make a living at it is such a great thing. It's like finding the reason why I'm here. And before I found painting, I was kind of lost, and I knew I was supposed to be doing something, and I knew I wasn't doing it. And then when I found painting, it really resonated. So I'm just happy to be a creative painter, and I really just enjoy the experience and producing it. And I don't weigh myself down with too much ambition or whatnot. You know, the fact that I can make a living and do the thing that I enjoy, that's such a great thing. It's everything.
That's well put. Thank you very much. So maybe if you would like to add something, is there anything you're working on currently? Is there anything you would like to let the viewers know about, where they can find your work? Is there anything that they can see maybe live in the future? Are there any projects that you would like to share with?
I share a lot on Instagram. So check me out there. It's V Giarrano on Instagram. You'll see a lot on there. I just did a book that was a great project. I really enjoyed doing that. So my book is available on my website. And right now I'm doing daily paintings, which is fun. I've done it a few times. And basically I just get a bunch of panels all the same size. This time I'm doing 6x8, which, you know, is a pretty small panel, but it's easy for me to do that in one day. So whatever I do in one day, and for as many days as I can do that before I want to move on, usually I do anywhere from like 9 to 12 days, but we'll see. I never know how long I'll go. I'm in the middle of that right now. And so when I'm off with you, I'm going to, you know, work on the painting that I started
today.
Yeah. And nice. I didn't mention before, but one of the things about my work is I only do one painting at a time. I'm totally focused on that one piece. And that's an important thing for me.
Yeah, I think this is really, how do you think, because you were talking about like feeling free and not kind of bound by anything. How do you think about working on one particular painting? Do you work on it until you reach certain like a feeling, and like do you allow yourself sometimes to skip or put it away and then work on something else, or do you need to finish it?
No, I finish it. I have a pretty clear idea of what I want to accomplish. I don't ever have that problem where I don't know that the painting's finished. That's not been an issue with me. I know a lot of artists say but I think that has to do with their process. But my process, it's a clear thing. I know when I'm done. And even before I start, I have a general idea of how long I'm going to work on the painting. Not specific, but, you know, generally I know. And so, yeah, I just do the painting. And if it fails, then it's done. I mean, I'll wipe it down or, you know.
It's not worth to overthink it.
Yeah, but I never liked that feeling of something unfinished, unresolved, and it nagged me. And so I kind of worked to cut that out.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for talking with me, and it was a pleasure, and it was really interesting. Thank you very much for joining us, and yeah, thank you.
Oh, it was my pleasure. I really enjoyed your questions and talking with you.